Did you know that this is proof the Bible is true? And just like all the other proof, archaeologists have actually found physical evidence to verify it.
All right, let's see it.
We know, according to the Bible in the book of Exodus, God gave Moses very specific instructions about how he was supposed to build an altar so that he could make sacrifices on it so the people could enter into covenant with God.
So there are two places in the book of Exodus where Moses is given instructions regarding building an altar of sacrifice. One is in Exodus 20, one is in Exodus 27. The instructions in Exodus 27 are more detailed, but they are for the altar of sacrifice for the tabernacle. It's supposed to be made of wood. The dimensions are about 7.5 feet by 7.5 feet. It is to be mobile for the tabernacle. And the construction of that altar is described in Exodus 38. Now, Exodus 20, verses 25 and 26 has God tell Moses, if you're going to build an altar of stone, it has to be unhewn stone, and it can't have steps going up to it. And Exodus 24, verse 4 seems to be where Moses actually builds that altar, but it gives no further detail, nothing about dimensions, nothing about levels or anything like that. It just says Moses built an altar, and then Moses set up 12 matzevot, or standing stones, for the tribes of Israel. So let's see if this fits what this creator says was discovered.
According to biblical geography, this is the real Mount Sinai, and it is still burnt from when God descended on it in fire.
So as I've stated in many previous videos, there's nothing special about the blackened stone of the top half of Jabal Maqla. There are hundreds of square miles of the Western Arabian Peninsula covered in that blackened stone. They're called hornfells. It's a perfectly natural geological process.
And at the base of that mountain, there remains an altar of uncut stone in the exact dimensions the Bible describes. According to the Bible, the altar was made up of 3 layers of uncut stone and then had 12 pillars to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. These are the uncut stones.
So absolutely nothing about this location suggests any relationship whatsoever to any altar built by Moses. It's far too big for the dimensions of any altar ever described anywhere in the Bible. And the 2002 published excavation report entitled Al-Bid, History and Archaeology actually dates this to the Nabatean period, over 1,000 years after Moses would have been in the area.
And these are the remains of the 12 pillars.
So when the book of Exodus uses the word pillars in English translation, the word being rendered there is the Hebrew matzevot, which would be more precisely rendered stelae or standing stones, because this was not a reference to perfectly round architectural columns. This was a reference to something that had a front, something that had a flattened face, whether natural or hewn. And that was because it was pointing in a direction. And sometimes that front would have an inscription, sometimes it would be painted, sometimes it could have a bas-relief carved into it. But when Exodus talks about setting up 12 standing stones, whether or not that's historical, they absolutely were not referring to the kind of perfectly circular architectural columns that are scattered around the site in this image.